Good evening, everyone. You ever get really fucking pissed? Me too! That's why I've come up with my own solution. Simulated assault! Capcom is one of the most iconic developers of all time with some of the biggest game franchises under their belt. Mega Man, Ace Attorney, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, and even Nemo. No, the other one. All of these series are massive in their own rights, but to this day, the most infamous franchise they created is no doubt Street Fighter. Damn, I thought it was Nemo. Street Fighter is one of the biggest video game things to exist. 2 movies with a third one in early production currently. Over a dozen entries over the years, and even having the honor of cameoing in American Dad vs. Family Guy Kung Fu 2. So what doesn't my mom know about Retsu? When you think of Street Fighter, you probably have an image in your mind, one with a subtitle or number next to it, but in the beginning we had this. I've been reading Genesis. Street Fighter 1 is the neglected eldest brother of its own series. Now, it's not uncommon for a sequel to be considered better than its predecessor. In fact, they usually perform better due to the general public knowing what the property even is. But sometimes that original property's first entry sneaks under the radar. As a child, I knew about every single Mario Kart out at the time, except for Super Mario Kart, just because of how hard Mario Kart 64 eclipsed it. Most sequels can't get away with this due to just having a big number 2 or having the original's title in it, but every once in a while we get lucky. I was tired of taking up mental space for Paddington, which is why I'm replacing it with something different. Paddington 2! In the scenario of the more popular sequel, its predecessor usually is at least acknowledged. Not the case with Street Fighter. The game is almost non-existent, only referenced in passing, but never for more than 3 syllables. But I'm here to speak my truth, no matter who it offends. Street Fighter 1 exists! I better lock my doors just in case. The story begins where most things do. Bruce Lee, naturally. Game developer Takashi Nishiyama had just gotten done working on the game Kung Fu Master, a beat-em-up that featured pretty neat boss fights for the time. Nishiyama was rather fond of these and wanted to make a game that was just those boss fights, and after watching a couple of Bruce Lee films and prototyping the idea in the NES game Trojan, Capcom gave him the go-ahead to develop the game Street Fighter. With the help of previous coworker Hiroshi Matsumoto, they got to work with a team of developers to make a game inspired by martial arts movies. Bruce Lee. They liked Bruce Lee. Hey, it was the 80s. Everyone did. In the era of Cabbage Patch Kids and Big League Chew, it was probably mind-blowing to see someone commit several felonies. With the love of those movies, the team took inspiration from previous iterations of fighting games like Karate Champ. Not Urban Champion, though. Come on, man, it checks all the boxes. They're clearly fighting and the street's right there! After 3 years of excruciating 80s development and the stripping of their mortal names, Street Fighter was unveiled to the world. You can tell because everything fucking sucks now. After pressing start or putting in your coin, you can choose either America or Japan. I hate to get involved in politics. This is actually your character select screen. While future games have pretty expansive rosters, Street Fighter 1 only has Ryu and Ken, with both of them essentially being palette swaps of each other. When this game was initially released in the arcades, each player was equipped with a joystick and 2 giant pressure-sensitive buttons, one for punching and one for kicking. Man, I was hoping for beans and gravy. Based on how hard the buttons were pressed, your character would respond with a light, medium, or heavy attack. While this was intended to be a game of strategy, any child who saw the big buttons thought that hitting harder meant hitting better, and they decided to destroy the fuck out of these buttons. This destroyed these machines, which led to Capcom revising the controls to a more conventional 6 buttons a joystick. Gesundheit. This game has the most odd sound effects. This is definitely due to this being a relatively early example of a fighting game, but at the same time, when I think of punching someone, I don't think of the sound of dropping Tupperware. Street Fighter games are also known for their extremely catchy soundtracks, and I will say, Street Fighter 1's soundtrack is one I'll never forget. That's because my tinnitus is acting up. The soundtrack might be bad, but that doesn't mean the visuals aren't also. In all honesty, most of these backgrounds aren't the worst. Most notably the first stage with this massive temple and this statue in front of a sunset. But for every one of these, we get a scuffed-ass train yard. And these character sprites. Ugh, these character sprites. These are scuffed to hell and back, and all of them have this nasty-ass pillow shading. Street Fighter plays the same way that I build a house, structurally unsound. At least that's what the government says. You can move in all 8 directions, but Street Fighter's movement is so sluggish and strange that it never feels right. See, in most video games when you press left and right, your character simply moves the direction you press. But Street Fighter innovates by making you do these little shame hops. I feel like this is supposed to be the hopping that boxers do to establish a rhythm, but when you're trying to send out a punch and you have to wait for Ryu to finish playing hacky sack and Retsu's about to concuss you, it doesn't feel great! And god, this jumping feels horrid. See, usually in fighting games when you jump, there's an arc or at the very least a sense of weight. I don't know how to explain it, but jumping in Street Fighter feels like jumping in checkers. Street Fighter is revolutionary for including what is known as a motion input. Basically, having a spasm on the joystick in combination with smashing some of the buttons can allow for special moves to come out. Now, some people say that motion inputs are unneeded, saying things like, why would you lock a core move behind a small cheat code rather than it just being a button? I have good news for these people because it's damn near impossible for anyone to hit a special move in this game. Throw any Street Fighter and controller in front of me, I'll know what to do. I can hit a Shoryuken any day of the week, but Street Fighter 1's window for hitting these is so strict that I can count on my hand the number of times that I sent one out in this game. And I got that shit amputated! This wouldn't be that much of an issue if these computer characters didn't have their own special moves that they could throw out every 8 seconds to drain your health bar. In fact, that's the biggest problem with this game. These computer fighters are more difficult to beat than eggs. It's harder than you'd think. The early characters aren't too much of an issue, but once you hit the halfway point, this game is barely playable. The second you appear on screen, these guys can just shred your health, and there's almost no way to defend yourself. It just feels bad that in a game this difficult, you get hit by enemies this fucking lame! Fighting games are known for their memorable casts, but Street Fighter has some of the most milquetoast characters I've ever seen. If I show you Eagle, does it elicit an emotion in you? I don't think I should say. The most notable character from this game is no doubt Sagat, the final boss of Street Fighter 1. He looks like a thumb wearing a pencil grip. Players who were skilled enough to make it this far were able to fight him, and if you beat him, you were able to get a short message calling you the best Street Fighter, and then the fighters' busted faces would be presented to you. The game was ported to various different platforms, but most notably the TurboGrafx CD. Oh, false alarm. Nothing about the game itself is that different, aside from it not being named Street Fighter, instead being renamed to Fighting Street. Well, that's just impossible. And if we're talking about renaming things, what about the staff? See, back in the day, crediting the people behind the games wasn't exactly a common practice. This led to the entire staff being given these funny fighting-themed pseudonyms. Hey, if you're stealing my identity, you better make it funny. Eventually, the staff on this game would come forward, get properly credited, and some even came back for future titles. Hell, the main creator even goes by Takashi Piston Nishiyama, a badass name that I will attempt to imitate. You could just call me Big Floor Mat Deuce. The game performed exceptionally well for the time, but received mixed reviews from those who played the game, and it's not really hard to see why. With a garbled soundtrack, lackluster gameplay, and butt-ugly visuals, it's an absolute slog to play. However, despite all its faults, it does have a few glimpses of promise between the cracks of this broken foundation. The concepts of character-specific special moves is an awesome way to differentiate the roster. The key art done by legendary Mega Man artist Keiji Inafune shows the uniqueness of the characters that the game fails to represent in-game. And the general concept of traveling the world to take down different countries' best fighters is a really fascinating and creative idea for the time that could be taken far into the future. Retsu has big-ass feet. Well, now that I've blown a digital gasket, my anger management has been completed. You know, I'm pretty proud of what I did today. After all, I bankrupted the entire industry of therapy!